Wounded Cowboy was left to die in the desert, but an Apache woman's gift changed his fate forever. The desert did not care who lived or who died. Under the wide, empty sky, a wounded cowboy lay in the sand, half covered by dust the wind kept pushing over him. His hat had rolled a few feet away. His coat was torn at the shoulder, dark with dried blood. His horse was gone. The men he once trusted were gone too. Only the sun remained. It burned down without mercy. His name was Daniel Reed, though no one was there to call it. His breathing was slow and uneven. Every breath felt like pulling air through fire. He tried to move his hand, but pain shot through his side and forced him still. He remembered the ambush. The ride had been quiet that morning. 4 riders, dust rising behind them. Laughter, small talk, nothing unusual. Then gunshots from behind the ridge. Chaos, shouting, horses screaming. He had fallen when his horse stumbled. Someone had grabbed the supply bag. Someone had shouted, "Leave him." And they did. He had heard hooves running away. He had tried to stand. He had fallen again. Now he lay alone hours later, maybe longer. Time moved strangely in the desert. By late afternoon, the heat began to fade, replaced by a heavy silence. The sky turned gold, then deep orange. Long shadows stretched across the sand. Daniel forced his eyes open. The world blurred, then cleared. He thought he saw movement on the horizon. At first, he believed it was just heat waves playing tricks on him, but the shape grew clearer. A single rider, slow, steady. His heart beat faster, though weakly. He did not know if the rider was friend or enemy. He did not even know if he would survive long enough to find out. The rider stopped several yards away. It was not one of the men who had betrayed him. It was a woman. She sat tall on her horse, watching him quietly. Her long, dark hair moved slightly in the evening wind. She wore simple clothing, practical and worn by travel. There was no rush in her movements, no fear either. She studied him like someone reading a book left open in the sand. After a long moment, she dismounted. Daniel tried to speak, but only a dry whisper came out. "Water," she approached carefully, not because she feared him, but because she respected the distance between strangers. She knelt beside him. Her eyes were sharp and calm. She noticed the wound at his side. She noticed the tracks in the sand behind him. She noticed there was only one set of horse tracks leaving the area. She understood more than he said. Without speaking, she took a small canteen from her saddle and held it to his lips. She did not let him drink too fast. Just enough, the water felt like life itself. He closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, she was unwrapping a small bundle tied with woven cloth. Inside were herbs and strips of clean fabric. "You will not last the night here," she said softly. Her English was steady, careful. He tried to laugh but winced from pain. "Wasn't planning to?" She did not smile. She gently cut away the torn fabric around his wound. He expected rough hands, but hers were precise and steady. She cleaned the wound with water mixed with crushed leaves. It stung, but the pain was sharp and clear, not fading and distant like before. "You were left," she said, not as a question. He nodded weakly. She pressed a mixture of herbs into the wound and wrapped it tight. Her movements were practiced. She worked quickly but carefully, as if she had done this many times before. When she finished, she looked toward the setting sun. "We move," she said. Daniel stared at her, confused. "Move. This place is not safe," he wanted to argue. He could barely sit up, but something in her voice told him arguing would waste the little strength he had left. She whistled softly. Her horse stepped closer. With effort, she helped him stand. Pain flooded through him, but she did not let him fall. She tied him gently but securely to the saddle so he would not slip. Then she mounted behind him, steadying him with one arm. The horse began to walk. The desert darkened as night rose quietly over the land. Stars appeared one by one, cold and bright. The air turned sharp and cool. Daniel drifted in and out of awareness. He felt the rhythm of the horse beneath him. He heard the wind moving through distant rocks. He smelled smoke faintly somewhere ahead. When he opened his eyes again, they were inside a narrow canyon hidden between tall stone walls. A small fire burned low, protected from view. Water trickled somewhere nearby. She guided the horse to stop. With patience, she helped him down and laid him near the fire. She gave him another small drink of water. "You rest," she said. He watched her as she moved around the small camp. There was something different about her, not just her quiet strength, something else. On her saddle hung the same woven bundle she had opened earlier. But now, as the firelight touched it, he noticed something strange. Faint lines shimmered across the cloth, almost like symbols. He blinked, thinking his eyes were playing tricks again. The lines were still there, soft, pale, like distant stars caught in fabric. "You see it," she said calmly without turning around. He swallowed. "What is it?" She stepped closer and picked up the bundle. The faint light seemed to pulse once, then fade again. "It is a gift," she said. "From who?" She looked up at the sky beyond the canyon walls. The stars were brighter here, framed by stone. "From those who walked this land before us," she said, "and from those who came from beyond it." He stared at her, unsure if fever was clouding his thoughts. "You need sleep," she added gently. She placed the bundle beside him, but not too close, close enough that he could see it clearly. Daniel lay back slowly. His body felt heavy, but not as cold as before. The pain was still there, but it felt contained, controlled. The woman sat across from him, watching the canyon entrance. "Why help me?" he asked quietly. She was silent for a long moment. "The desert chooses who lives," she finally said, "but sometimes it asks someone to carry the choice." He did not fully understand, but he felt no threat in her presence. The fire crackled softly. He drifted into sleep. In his dreams, he did not see gunfire or betrayal. He saw stars, not as tiny lights in the sky, but as close and bright, swirling in patterns he did not recognize. Lines connected them, shapes formed, the same shapes he had seen on the woven cloth. When he woke again before dawn, the fire was nearly out. The sky was deep blue. The woman was still awake, and the bundle beside him gave off the faintest glow in the darkness. Daniel realized something then. He had not just been saved from death. He had been brought somewhere for a reason. And whatever that reason was, it had begun the moment the Apache woman chose not to ride past him in the sand. The desert was no longer empty. It was watching. Morning came slowly inside the hidden canyon. The first light touched the tops of the stone walls before reaching the ground. Cool air moved through the narrow space, carrying the soft sound of flowing water. Daniel Reed opened his eyes and for a moment forgot where he was. Then the pain in his side reminded him. He shifted slightly. The wound still hurt, but not like before. The sharp burning had faded into a deep ache. He touched the bandage carefully. It felt firm and clean. Across the small camp, the Apache woman sat near the water, grinding herbs between two stones. She looked as calm as the desert before a storm. "You are awake," she said without turning. Daniel pushed himself up slowly. "Still alive?" "Yes," she answered. "The desert allowed it." He studied her more clearly now in the morning light. Her face showed strength, not softness. There was no fear in her eyes, only patience. He realized she had stayed awake most of the night. "You should have left me," he said quietly. "Would have been easier." She finally looked at him. "Easy is not always right." He had no answer to that. She walked over and unwrapped the bandage. Daniel expected to see swelling and dried blood. Instead, the wound looked cleaner than it should have after only one night. The redness had faded. The edges had already begun to close. He frowned. "That's not normal." She did not seem surprised. She applied fresh herbs and wrapped it again. "The gift helps," she said. Daniel glanced toward the woven bundle lying beside her saddle. In daylight it looked simple, almost ordinary, but he remembered the glow from the night before. "What is it?" he asked again. She sat back on her heels and considered him. "My name is Yana," she said. "You should know the name of the one who saved you." "Daniel," he replied. "I know," he blinked. "How?" She pointed toward the inside of his coat where a small metal badge was pinned. His name was engraved on it. He had forgotten about it. "You guard the supply road," she said. "I have seen you before from a distance." He felt a strange mix of surprise and unease. "Why watch me? I watch many things." She reached for the woven bundle and placed it between them. "This," she said softly, "has been protected by my people for generations. We do not call it technology, we call it a memory." Daniel leaned closer. Up close he could see faint lines stitched into the cloth, not random shapes but patterns that almost looked like maps. "A memory of what?" he asked. "Of those who came from the sky long ago." Daniel almost laughed, but the serious look in her eyes stopped him. "You mean travelers?" "Yes," he shook his head slightly. "That sounds like stories for children." "Stories are sometimes the only way to protect truth," she said calmly. She untied the bundle carefully. Inside was not a weapon or gold or anything he expected. It was a small disc made of dark metal, smooth and cold. Thin lines curved across its surface like rivers. When sunlight touched it, the lines shimmered faintly. Daniel felt something strange in his chest, like a quiet pull. He did not understand it, but he could not look away. "You should not touch it," Iana said softly, but his hand moved before he could stop himself. The moment his fingers brushed the disc, the air around them changed. A faint hum filled the canyon, not loud but steady. The lines on the disc glowed brighter and thin beams of light rose upward, forming shapes in the air. Daniel pulled his hand back in shock, but the light did not disappear. Above the disc, a map formed, points of light connected by glowing lines. It looked like the stars he had seen in his dream. Yana watched carefully. Her face showed no fear, only confirmation. "It reacts," she whispered, "just as the elders said." Daniel stared at the floating image. "I didn't do anything." "You did," she said. "It chose to answer you." The map shifted slowly, as if searching. Then one section of the canyon wall glowed faintly in response. Daniel turned toward it. "What does that mean?" "It means you are part of something larger than your road and your badge," she replied. The light faded as quickly as it had appeared. The canyon returned to normal. The disc cooled in her hands. Silence returned, but it felt different now. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "This is not possible." "Many things are not possible," Iana said, "until they happen." Before he could speak again, she stiffened slightly and looked toward the canyon entrance. "Someone is coming." Daniel listened carefully. At first he heard nothing, then faintly distant hoofbeats. His stomach tightened. "How many?" he asked. "2, maybe 3. He struggled to stand. His body protested, but he forced himself upright. "They left me to die." "If they find me, they will not find you easily," she said. She quickly wrapped the disc again and hid it inside a narrow crack in the canyon wall. Then she kicked sand over their tracks near the fire. "Move," she instructed. She guided him toward a narrow passage behind a cluster of rocks. It was barely wide enough for one person to pass through. They slipped inside just as shadows appeared at the canyon entrance. Daniel pressed himself against the cool stone, trying to quiet his breathing. Voices echoed faintly outside. "I saw tracks," one man said. "He came this way." Another voice replied, "No one survives out here that long." Boots crunched on gravel. Daniel clenched his jaw. He recognized one of the voices. It belonged to the man who had shouted, "Leave him." Yana stood beside him, completely still. Her breathing was calm. Her hand rested lightly against the stone wall. The men moved around the canyon for several long minutes. One of them kicked at the dying fire pit. "Nothing here," he muttered. "Maybe the desert finished the job," the other said. Daniel felt anger rising inside him, hot and sharp, but he stayed silent. Finally, the hoofbeats faded. Iana waited longer, listening carefully. "They will return," she said quietly, "but now they are unsure." Daniel stepped out from the narrow passage, breathing deeply. "They're not just looking for me," he said slowly. "They're looking for that disc." "Yes. How do they know about it?" She looked at him carefully. "Some men listen when they should not. Some men search for power without understanding it." Daniel stared toward the canyon entrance. The anger inside him began to mix with something else, purpose. "They think it's a weapon," he said. "They are wrong," Iana replied. "It is not meant to destroy. It is meant to guide." "To what?" She looked again at the canyon wall where the light had responded earlier. "To a doorway," she said softly, "buried beneath this land." Daniel felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. He was no longer just a wounded cowboy hiding from betrayal. He was standing at the edge of something far older than his troubles. Iana retrieved the wrapped disc and handed it to him carefully. "It answered you," she said. "That means your path is no longer only yours." Daniel looked down at the simple bundle in his hands. His old life, riding supply routes, trusting the wrong men, thinking the desert was empty, felt distant now. The canyon was quiet again. But the silence no longer felt empty. It felt like waiting. And Daniel understood something clearly for the first time since the ambush. He had not survived by accident. The gift had awakened. And the men who left him to die were only the beginning of the danger coming toward them. The canyon felt different after the men left. The air was heavier, as if the desert itself was listening more closely. Daniel stood near the entrance, watching the horizon where the riders had disappeared. His heart still beat faster than normal, but not from fear alone. Something had changed inside him since touching the mysterious disc. He felt alert in a new way. Iana moved quietly around the camp, packing their belongings with steady movements. She did not rush, but Daniel sensed urgency in her silence. "They will return," she said finally. "I know," Daniel replied, "and next time they won't come just to look," she nodded once. "We leave before sunset." Daniel glanced at the canyon walls. "I thought this place was hidden." "It is," she said, but hidden places become known when people search hard enough. He understood what she meant. The men who betrayed him were not likely to give up. Greed made people stubborn. He tried walking a few steps. His body still hurt, but the strength in his legs surprised him. He moved more easily than he expected after such a serious injury. "You heal quickly," Yana observed. "That's because of the herbs," he said. She did not answer immediately. "Partly," she said at last. Daniel looked toward the woven bundle where the disc rested. "You mean that thing is helping me heal?" "It responds to those it chooses," she said simply. He shook his head, still struggling to accept everything happening around him. "I'm just a cowboy, nothing special." She met his eyes calmly. "The desert does not agree." The words stayed with him as they prepared to leave. They traveled along narrow paths hidden between rock formations, moving deeper into areas few people ever reached. The land changed slowly. Sand gave way to scattered stone, and patches of dry grass appeared where underground water flowed unseen. Daniel followed as best as he could, relying on Yana's knowledge of the terrain. She moved with quiet confidence, always watching the sky and the ground. As the sun climbed higher, the heat returned, but it felt less oppressive than before. Daniel noticed sounds he had ignored in the past, distant birds, shifting wind patterns, the rhythm of their footsteps. "You listen differently now," she said without looking back. "Maybe I never really listened before." "That is true for many people," she replied. They stopped near a cluster of tall rocks that created natural shade. Yana handed him water and small pieces of dried food. "You must keep your strength," she said. He nodded, then hesitated. "You said your people guard this memory. Why me? Why did it react to me?" She sat across from him, thoughtful. "There are stories," she said slowly. "Stories about a bridge, someone who stands between worlds, not belonging fully to one path or another." Daniel laughed quietly. "Sounds like something meant for heroes. I'm not that." "You survived betrayal and chose not to become like those who hurt you," she said. "That matters." He did not know what to say. They rested only briefly before continuing. As afternoon approached, they reached a ridge overlooking a wide stretch of desert. From there, Daniel could see far into the distance, and he saw movement, dust rising, riders more than before. "They came back," he said. "Yes," Yana answered, "and they brought others." Daniel counted at least 6 figures moving slowly across the landscape, scanning the area. "They won't stop," he said quietly. "No," she agreed. "They believe the gift gives power. Doesn't it?" "It gives purpose," she said. "People often confuse the two." They descended the ridge carefully, moving toward a hidden trail that led into a narrow valley. As they walked, Daniel felt a faint warmth coming from the bundle tied to his saddle. He touched it gently. The warmth increased. Yana noticed immediately. "It is guiding us. To where? You will see." The trail ended at a flat rock wall that looked ordinary at first glance. Nothing about it suggested importance. No markings, no obvious entrance, but as Daniel approached, the warmth in the bundle grew stronger. "Take it out," Yana said. He unwrapped the disc carefully. The moment it was exposed to the air, soft light appeared again, forming thin lines that pointed toward the rock wall. The ground beneath their feet vibrated gently. Dust fell from cracks in the stone. Slowly, silently, a section of the rock shifted inward, revealing a narrow opening hidden within the wall. Daniel stared in disbelief. "This was here the whole time?" "Yes," she said. "Waiting." They stepped inside cautiously. The air was cool and still. The walls were smooth in ways natural rock should not be. Faint lines ran along the surfaces, glowing softly when the disc moved closer. It felt ancient yet alive. They followed a passage that curved deeper into the earth until it opened into a wide chamber. At its center stood a structure unlike anything Daniel had ever seen, tall and circular, made of dark material that reflected light without shining. He felt small standing before it. "What is this place?" he whispered. "A doorway," Yana said softly. "Or perhaps a voice waiting to speak." The disc floated slightly above his hands, as if pulled forward. Light spread across the chamber, revealing symbols carved into the walls. Daniel felt memories brush against his mind, not clear images, but feelings, travel, stars. Journeys beyond the desert. Suddenly, a loud echo came from behind them, footsteps, voices. "They followed us," Daniel said. The men entered the chamber, weapons raised. The leader stepped forward, smiling coldly. "Well, look at that," he said. "You did survive." Daniel recognized him immediately, the man who had left him behind. "And you found something valuable for us." the man added, eyes fixed on the glowing disk. Daniel stepped protectively in front of Iana. You don't understand what this is, he said. The man laughed. Doesn't matter, looks powerful enough. He moved closer. The disk reacted instantly. Light burst outward, not violent but strong enough to force everyone back. The men stumbled, their weapons lowering without explanation. A deep humming filled the chamber. Symbols across the walls glowed brighter. The air felt charged with energy. Daniel realized the structure was responding not to the intruders but to him. He looked at Iana. She nodded calmly. It recognizes you, she said. The leader hesitated now, uncertainty replacing confidence. What is this? He demanded. Daniel did not answer. He felt a strange calm spreading through him, guiding his thoughts. The light intensified briefly, then softened. The men backed away slowly, unsettled by what they could not control. This isn't over, the leader said before turning and leaving with the others. Silence returned. Daniel exhaled slowly. What just happened? You stood as the bridge, Iana said gently. He stared at the glowing structure, understanding that his life had changed beyond return. The doorway had opened, and whatever waited beyond it had begun to awaken. The chamber was quiet now. The faint glow of the walls bathed everything in a soft, steady light. Daniel Reed stood beside Iana, his heart still racing from the encounter with the men who had followed them. The disk floated slightly above his hands, pulsing as if alive. He stared at the structure in the center of the room. It was taller than him, cylindrical, made of a dark, smooth material that seemed to shift subtly when he looked at it from different angles. Lines of light ran along it, matching the patterns on the disk. He could feel its presence, not threatening but powerful. Iana placed a hand gently on his shoulder. This is why you were saved, she said softly. The desert brought you here because you can understand it, protect it. Daniel swallowed hard. Understand it, protect it. I'm just a man from the supply roads. How can I do that? You've already begun, she said. You survived. You chose to stand, not to strike blindly. That is the first step. He looked down at the disk again. It glowed brighter as if responding to her words. He felt a strange warmth run through him, a calm that was not his own but felt right. His mind, which had been clouded with pain and anger, seemed clearer. He understood, in a way he could not explain, that this place was more than rock and light. It was history, knowledge, and guardianship combined into one. Step closer, Iana said. Let it show you. Daniel hesitated, but something in her calm voice encouraged him. He moved toward the structure, and the disk floated before him, hovering in perfect alignment with the glowing lines on the walls. The lights on the walls brightened as if welcoming him. Then it began. A soft hum filled the room, steady and low, vibrating in his chest. Images appeared in the air above the structure, not like a solid picture, but like a vision. Daniel saw stars, whole constellations stretching across skies he had never known. Strange shapes moved among them, long and smooth, gliding like they were alive. He realized with awe that these were not just stars, but paths, journeys, perhaps vessels moving between worlds. The disk rotated slowly, and the glowing lines on the walls traced the paths of these vessels. They came before, Iana said quietly, to teach, to protect, to leave messages for those who could carry their work forward. Daniel's mouth went dry. Teach, protect, messages? She nodded. The artifact chooses its keeper. You have been chosen because you have survived the desert, because you faced betrayal, because you did not give in to anger. You have the heart to carry it forward. He could not speak. The visions continued, flashes of landscapes beyond Earth, cities built with impossible geometry, beings moving gracefully through skies. Some of the images seemed to overlap with memories he had never lived. He shook his head. I don't understand. You will, Iana said. In time, but first you must protect it. Daniel looked back toward the entrance of the chamber. The desert was still quiet. The men who had followed them would return, perhaps with more, but for now they were safe. What if they come back? He asked. They'll try to take it. They will, Iana admitted, but they cannot wield it. Only those it chooses can. The others are powerless against it if you are ready. Daniel took a deep breath and looked down at the disk. Its warmth spread through his hands and up his arms. He felt strong in a way he had not felt in years. The pain from his old wound was still there, but it seemed smaller, distant. Then I'll protect it, he said finally. I don't know what it is or why me, but I will. Iana smiled faintly. That is all it asks. They spent the next hours exploring the chamber. Daniel touched the walls carefully, tracing the lines of light with his fingertips. Each touch made the lights shift slightly, like the structure was alive, responding to him. He realized that the glowing lines on the walls were not random. They were maps, maps of places, of paths, of journeys that connected worlds in ways he could not fully comprehend. The disk acted as a key, revealing what was hidden to the eye alone. "Do you understand now?" Iana asked softly. Daniel shook his head. "Not fully, but I feel it. I feel that it's important, that it needs me." "Good," she said. "That is enough for now." The soft hum of the structure filled the chamber as the sun began to set far above the desert outside. Shadows stretched across the walls, and the colors of the light shifted to gold and amber. It was beautiful, almost peaceful, yet Daniel knew the quiet would not last. Suddenly, movement outside caught his eye. Figures appeared at the edge of the canyon entrance. The men had returned. More of them this time, riding fast, weapons drawn. They shouted, but their words were lost in the canyon wind. Daniel turned to Ayana. "They found us." "Yes," she said calmly, "but we are ready." He looked back at the structure. The disk floated higher, glowing stronger than before. The lines on the walls pulsed, reacting to the intruders. "They can't touch it," Yana said. "Not unless it allows them." The riders entered the canyon, shouting and brandishing weapons. They moved toward the chamber with determination, greed written clearly on their faces. Daniel stepped forward, holding the disk. The hum grew louder, vibrating in the air. Light spread across the walls, forming a barrier between them and the men. The intruders stumbled, surprised and fearful. Their weapons felt heavy, almost useless. Daniel raised the disk slightly. The visions of stars and paths appeared again, hovering above the intruders. The men froze, eyes wide, unable to move against what they could not understand. Iana moved beside him, calm and controlled. "Do not strike," she instructed. "Let it show them." Daniel nodded, though his hands trembled. He held the disk steady. Slowly, the light expanded, wrapping around the men like a soft cocoon. Their fear grew, but there was no harm done. The disk's power was not for destruction. One by one, the men dropped their weapons, confused and shaken. They turned and fled, stumbling back the way they had come. When silence returned, Daniel lowered the disk. The glow dimmed slightly, but it still pulsed softly, steady and alive. "You see," Iana said, "power is not always in force. Sometimes it is in truth, in showing what is real." Daniel exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. He had survived betrayal, the desert, and the greedy men. Now he understood that protecting this place was not just about strength. It was about understanding, patience, and courage. He looked around the chamber, at the glowing walls, at the disk, at Ayana beside him. His life had changed completely in just a few days. He had entered the desert a lonely, wounded man. Now he stood as a guardian of something greater than himself. Ayana reached out and placed her hand on his arm. "It is time," she said. "You have been chosen, but your journey is only beginning." Daniel nodded. "I am ready." Together they stepped deeper into the chamber. The structure's glow shifted, opening pathways of light that revealed corridors and hidden chambers, maps of journeys he could not yet fully understand. The disk floated beside him, warm and steady, guiding him forward. Outside, the desert remained quiet under the stars. But inside, in the hidden chamber, a new story had begun, a story of survival, of trust, and of the gift that changed Daniel Reed's fate forever. For the first time in years, he felt hope. Not just for himself, but for the desert, for the secrets it held, and for the path he had been chosen to follow. And somewhere in the glow of the chamber, he knew the Apache woman's gift was not just a saving of one life. It was the beginning of a legacy, one he would carry with courage, honor, and heart, for as long as the desert and the stars required it. The desert would never forget. Daniel Reed would never forget. And together they walked forward into the light, ready to face whatever lay ahead.